Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct. We've created a platform to help people, alumni, to network and connect through their affinity relationships. So whether it be a college relationship, it could be a Greek organization, or athletes. And that's what we're here today is one thing that we've realized is that the whole athlete transition is becoming a major issue. And we're trying to, provide content to help teach and inspire athletes that there is life after sports. And today we're really excited. We have Brandon Beachy on with us. Brandon, how you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Rob.
You're welcome. So Brandon is a former major league pitcher. He pitched for the Dodgers and most of his career for the Braves. He's a top performing franchisee in the quality installation system and a franchise consultant as well. So a lot of different things going. And like we talked a little bit about before the show, we try to make it real fun. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, tell me a little bit about how sports, like when you started and, sports that you played.
Man, I mean, my dad probably had a ball in my hands, as a baby. But I played every sport, grew up on a farm in Indiana, and that's all we did, basketball, baseball, football, especially basketball. But yeah, I mean, sports, that was mine and my brother's lives. That's what we did. Crack of dawn, we're out there playing until the school bus came, and then right back at it after school till we fight, and then we start over and do it again till we fight, and then it's bedtime.
Did your brothers play at all past professional baseball or?
No, I had two brothers that played college ball, but that's it. Yeah.
So were you the youngest one?
I'm the oldest of
Okay.
seven. I'm the oldest of seven, and the four oldest of us were all boys. So we did everything all day and night together.
That's great. Sounds like a lot of fun. So did you dream about being a professional athlete when you were little?
Oh, of course. I mean, I remember being out in the yard or we had a heated barn with a hoop in it. Being out there, living out those dreams, every day of hitting that buzzer beater and, hitting the home run, 3-2 bottom of the ninth, living those out all the time.
That's like, well, I mean, obviously everybody knows like Indiana, the Hoosier State, right? It's all the basketball. I mean, think about the different basketball movies that came out. In fact, my wife's family's from Indiana, so a lot of stories from that. So I always tell people too. I say, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I would have loved being a major league baseball player myself. Unfortunately, talent wasn't there, so I ended up doing this. I did coaching with my son and all that. But growing up playing sports, I mean, there's a lot of sacrifice. I mean, and this is across any sport, whether you're baseball, football, basketball, swimming. I mean, a lot of practice and all that. There are sacrifices and all that. How do you think that shaped you kind of, leading up through high school and ultimately into college?
Oh man, for me, it didn't feel like a sacrifice. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. I would have felt the opposite, to be honest with you. I would have felt like I was sacrificing if I was doing something other than playing ball. But yeah, other than having a job, which I had at times through high school, but learning how to fail is the best thing I think I could take away as a youth from sports. Learning, losing and then showing up the next day to work harder and get better. The discipline that it teaches you by showing up to practice and having a tangible consequence for your actions in the form of sport. You mess up and it affects the game, and you feel that instantly and see it. The hard work and the resiliency, I think, you talk about sacrifice. I think if you're not playing sports or doing something competitive, I think you're sacrificing those qualities.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I ran cross country and track in high school and a little bit into college. So same kind of thing. I mean, just obviously the practice, a lot of, putting a lot of pain in as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So kind of walk me through. So now you played sports growing up, and now you went to college, and talk a little bit about when you're there. Kind of go through the experience of playing college ball, and then second to that, also like how did the school kind of prepare you as far as um, maybe life after sports? Like, did they do anything with that? So I guess first talk about playing, and then that's the second question there.
Yeah, so I went to a small school, Indiana Wesleyan University. Never dreamt of playing beyond that, but it was a way to pay for school. And then yeah, again, you go from high school athletics to college, and you're living there, you're on campus, and you know they can control a lot more of your lives at that point. But really, the 4:30 a.m. conditioning and
Wow.
the weights, after practice, and on top of having to study and still pull down grades. That's really, you struggle through that, and the discipline and the time management, if it wasn't there, it came quickly because of that, of necessity.
Right.
Things that we all commiserated over at the time, that you can look back and later in life and really be thankful for, as weird as that seems. But yeah. Sorry, what was the
Sorry, I should have hit you on two questions there. So the second one was more what kind of, and again, we times change obviously.
yeah, the preparation.
Yeah, just kind of preparing the athletes for life after, because I know I've talked to different coaches and sports agents, and they talk about, I think it's like 0.00001% might make it, and you're one of those, which is great.
Yeah.
But like, do they kind of talk about that when you're in college, and prepare you that there is going to be 30, 40, 50 years after sports?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for a lot of athletes, but at the school I was, my last year there as a player, we had a guy get drafted. I ended up signing later that summer undrafted, but he was the first guy drafted out of my college in like 40 years,
Wow.
30 years at that time. So none of us were really there thinking, we're going to keep playing ball. And the coaching staff kind of, that was always understood, so that it was clear, and it was openly discussed about, these are, enjoy these times, but these are values and lessons that you're going to learn that are going to translate into your life. And for the actual school itself, I mean, I definitely wasn't taking any classes on how to handle myself as a professional athlete later. I had the idea of going to law school at the time, so I was prepared for that. Wasn't really taking business classes, so I don't have a whole lot other than those, those valuable lessons on, outside of that, the school, hasn't really translated into what I'm doing today, I guess, necessarily.
Right. What kind of interaction did the alumni athletes, or just alumni in general, have with you and the different athletes at the time that were still in school?
We had an alumni weekend every year, and that's in the fall for us, and we'd have a alumni baseball game, golf outing, and so I interacted. I did I used that relationship and got an internship at a prosecutor's office with one of the alumni that I would see every fall. But other than that, I didn't really have any contact, or and I'm not sure if that was the lack of it existing, or me not having time, or even thinking along those terms of being involved in something that might have been offered.
Right. But just curious. So like now, if you fast forward to current times, I mean, is that something that, do they ever ask you to come back and talk? I mean, other than the alumni weekend, the games, I mean, does the school ask you to come back and talk to the athletes at all?
I have once a while ago. Not really. Again, it's just not a school that you go to if you're going to become a professional athlete. that's not necessarily part of the plan. So outside of the baseball team, I haven't really had a whole lot of contact there. But again, that's as much my fault as anything else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like anything, I think there's a certain time in your life. For me, yeah, I got involved in my alumni club. I don't know, probably when I was in my 40s. It's just the timing after doing all the coaching with my son's sports. Just, I mean, everything's all relevant to that. So one of the hot topics right now is NIL, name, image, likeness. Obviously, when you were playing, that wasn't out there. Give me what your thoughts are on it.
I mean, I've been a proponent of something of this nature for a long time. I think it's kind of ridiculous that the guys can't go out there and, sign an autograph and charge $10 an autograph if someone's willing to pay it. I understand, paying players was kind of the hot thing to talk about and be in favor of, but the way that would actually work wouldn't make any sense. I think this is a great solution for the athletes and for the schools. So I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. Some of the numbers of what these top guys are getting, it's awesome. And but yeah, I'm interested to see what it will look like, the landscape in 5 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've talked to several people, former athlete, former professional players and like one guy was like a former NFL guy, said that he really likes it. Obviously, wished it was around when he was playing, but like his flip side of it was his concern of like, I guess some of these, they're young. I mean, it could be anybody young. It's not to be an athlete, but just all of a sudden making this money, not realizing, hey, you got to pay taxes, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I think that's kind of like what we're trying to do with Alumni Direct is create kind of the resources. I think, and that's where I see it going back to college, where whether it's alumni athletes or just people to help educate. And I guess some of the bigger schools are trying to do that.
Yeah, and I think they're allowing guys, especially the guys that are getting paid a lot of money. I think they have the ability now to hire someone to help them with that, as opposed to, they can't hire an agent, but they can hire, someone that operates in a similar capacity and that can guide them. So, I think with the money, the resources will follow. But yeah, that's a tough call. If someone would have given me 20,000 in cash in college, not very many good decisions would have been made. But yeah, I would hope that that's, something that the schools are providing resources and having, meetings and lectures on.
Yeah, we had talked about that. There was some people I was working with that they kind of envisioned going back into some of these colleges and working on coming up with different ideas of curriculum to help teach financial literacy and things like that. And the other topic that was kind of interesting that you also talked about was social media, because we all know that, again, like for me it didn't exist when I was going to school, but even for you, I'm sure maybe it did or didn't or was starting to. But I guess what's your thoughts on that, and what kind of advice would you give to these college athletes and even younger athletes regarding social media?
Yeah, well, I think they're all growing up in a different time where most of them by now are even in the last few years, you're seeing fewer and fewer, professional athletes having old tweets dug up and stuff like that.
Right.
Where it's, there was a period of time where these kids, they had it when they're 13, but nobody really looked at Twitter like they do now.
Right.
And now it's all, I think people are more aware, just their, being, on it from the start. I think you're going to see less problems, and hopefully there's more, I'd love to see some more financial literacy courses in middle school and high school, so that it's not even necessarily the college's responsibility. By the time they get there, they should have a decent understanding. But then, yeah, I mean, and I'm sure, if you're Ohio State football, I would like to think they've got, a social media person that's, putting them through lectures on, how to use it. But not only that, but, on the negative side, being wary of screwing up, but how to use it for your benefit. the NIL, the brand, the personal branding for some of these guys. You know, there's tons of opportunities there. So, you know, it's definitely a tool man, I mean, if you're in that position, capitalize.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you're right. Social media is a positive thing, you know, especially obviously you got to steer away from the negative connotation. I mean, there was one guy, it was funny. I got one of my alumni from Delaware, and he talked about how when he was playing, there was one night they went out and they kind of partied the night before a big tournament. And then they just ended up sleeping in the parking lot. So like, but back then, like, you know, there wasn't the social media. So just, you know, the coaches might have gotten a little ticked off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about it. So let's kind of fast forward. So you graduated college and you were fortunate enough to you know, become a professional baseball player. So maybe talk a little bit about the transition from being a college pitcher to kind of your journey through the minor leagues and ultimately to major leagues.
Yeah, mine was kind of unique. I didn't really start pitching until I got to college. And I was a relief pitcher and got into, you know, I was an undrafted guy, got signed out of a summer league, and that worked to my benefit in the fact that, you know, they hadn't invested a lot of money in me. So there was no plan, you know, they had no long-term plan set out. So I got in there pretty quickly, and you know, when I was throwing well and injuries happen and opportunities arise, you know, they could move me along. So I made it up in 2 years through the minors to the majors. And then, you know, the adjustment, not pitching a lot and it being a quick journey, you know, I was just learning the craft kind of through there. So you know, it was always more of an internal kind of game for me. You know, most people will talk about the level of the hitters and the umpires as you go up the ladder. But, you know, I always kind of felt like I was a little underprepared or a little behind, you know, the competition. So I was focused more on, you know, grinding out and getting better, you know, on the practice mound and those things. And then, you know, and before I knew it, I was there. And then it's, you know, throw all that away and just compete and, you know, study and compete. And I like that. I liked the mental side of things, you know, the scouting and scouting myself and, you know, the mind games there.
Yeah, that's it. It's interesting. I mean, it's a good perspective because a lot of times, you know, the people like me, the avid fan, you know, to hear that and hear what you go through. So once you said you kind of, I guess you said your career kind of got derailed by injuries. So what was it like for you? You know, I mentioned at the start of the show, just, you know, every athlete has a different story. For my story, I ran and I got hurt my sophomore year, and I never really thought about the whole transition thing my sophomore year of college. I didn't think about it because I just kind of went on. But I mean, you know, especially going to the level that you did, how hard was that when it was over?
Oh man, it was hard. And yeah, it was harder. You know, I felt like I was done a few times. But yeah, I spent essentially the last 3 years of my career rehabbing and hanging on and making comeback attempts, you know, out of fear of what's next. You know, so this is what I knew, and I saw, you know, a slimmer, just a sliver, a glimmer of hope, I guess, that there's a way I could make it back and get back to that physical shape. But, you know, really in the back of my mind, I knew if I was confident in what I was going to do next, I would have left, you know, 3 years before I did. But yeah, you know, so I was dealing with physical stuff, but yeah, the mental part of that was torture. Just the unknown, being fearful. Here I am now. I'm, you know, at that time, 32 years old, and have, you know, zero professional experience that translates to the business world. You know, what do I do? I don't want to coach. You know, being away from my family was one of the reasons I did give it up. So I don't want to get into something that's going to do that. You know, what do I do? Where do I turn? Yeah, it's tough. You know, I spent a lot of time trying to, you know, have other interests and be more than just a baseball player. And then, was fooling myself thinking that I had more to my identity than that, because as soon as that was gone, it's pretty obvious, that was it. I was totally wrapped up in that. And that's all anybody, knew me by or cared about me because of. And that's gone now. So what do I do?
It's interesting you say that because, hearing your perspective, because in talking to a lot of these people that, I've been talking to athlete transition coaches and people that are trying to help and make a difference. And they talk about that most athletes, it's kind of like they think of themselves and what they were. You were a baseball player, and it wasn't, you weren't Brandon, you were a baseball player. And, to try to shift that mindset to get into, what's next in life. So one of the things that we're trying to do at Alumni Direct, I talked a little bit offline about it, but just trying to help people network and connect. I talked to a couple agents, and the one thing they said, and you kind of give me your opinion on this, is that they feel that the best time to network and connect as an athlete is when you're still playing. But a lot of athletes fail to do that, and then they get done. They're like, okay, here, give me what do I get? I get my 6-figure job and all that. So, what are your thoughts on that, from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, like as an athlete, you never have as much, pull cachet as when you're still playing, and you never will again. But I think the other side of that is, and I know this was true for myself, as long as that jersey's hanging in the locker, I'm not thinking about what's next, because what's next is never coming. So I was not a guy that was networking. I was laser focused on, I'm pitching against the Marlins 3 days from now.
Right.
That's all I was thinking about. I think athletes today, even, 10 years later, are doing a way better job of being business oriented. But I still think a large, I think the people that are doing that, this is a generalization, are usually players that are more secure in their career. Those are the ones that you hear about doing those kinds of things.
Right.
Because, if it's gone tomorrow, they're still set for life. At least that's my perspective.
You're right. That's a good point.
I didn't make it to that, and those guys that are thinking that way are the guys that they don't need help transitioning, except for maybe talking to somebody on the mental side of things. But in terms of career transition, that's not even a factor. So I think it's hard. I think it's hard to reach those guys while they're playing. You could have told me all about Alumni Direct, and or somebody basically talking about a job or a career right in front of me in the locker room, and I wouldn't have heard a word of it. Not while that jersey was hanging there. And then the problem is, as soon as that jersey's gone, the player's in the wind. They're gone. There's not a good way for people to connect to get to them, or vice versa.
Yeah, that's tough, and I know we talked a little bit about that because, when I'm looking at kind of what we're trying to do and create this platform for this connection, you're looking at almost like 3 different alumni groups, so to speak. You've got your alumni from college, you got your alumni from minor league baseball, and alumni as a major league baseball player. So, what kinds of things are out there now, that they try to do, in those, like, especially more like the minor league baseball, major league baseball. And, second part of that is, besides, what's out there, what do you think can be done better?
Well, in terms of what's out there, the only thing that I really remember from the minor leagues or even the major leagues in terms of like networking potential was the BAT, it's called BAT, Baseball Assistance Team. And that's essentially, everybody donates to that when they can, because that's kind of a last resort thing when you're down on your luck and you need some help, that you go to them. So it wasn't, it was, a great cause, but definitely, there's a connotation there, but there wasn't, and you have a lot of guys that are too prideful even when they need it to go to them. But there was nothing in terms of networking. And what I would like to see is, kind of exactly what you're building, especially on the minor league side and the college side, just a more narrowly focused networking medium, somewhere where, you know, discussions could be you know, even today, like, you know, I'd like to see something where I could go on there and post a seasonal job, you know, for minor league ball players if
Right.
that live in the area, something of that nature, a way that athletes could benefit from it now, so that when they're someday on the other end, they could kind of pay it back,
Right.
that they have somewhere to do it, that they're already connected to.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's, you know, what we're trying to achieve. I know I was talking to one guy, he was a former college football player, and the one thing he said is that he got done and just went, you know, ended up back in his childhood room and partying with his friends, and just he didn't get what he expected. He was expecting to come out and get this big sales job and all that. So I asked him, I said, would have something like this made a difference? And what he said is that if he could have gone to a place where alumni, whether it be athletes or just alumni in general, could then, you know, help out. Like, for example, like we have a place where alumni could post jobs. So let's say, you know, for your college, they post jobs. And to me, I always talk about if I interviewed a bunch of people, they had the same credentials, but one went to Delaware and hired the Delaware person. So he felt that that would have, in his words, it would change the trajectory of his life, because he would have tapped into that network and saying, okay, well, he went to Stony Brook, so he's looking at these, you know, the Stony Brook alumni that could help him out.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to see, you know, it's, I mean, that's the point of fraternities, right?
Yeah,
And
good call.
and if you're not in one of those, then you don't have that. But we were in fraternities, you know, we were in, you know, in locker rooms with each other every day. That's as much of a fraternity as anything else. And why we don't make more of an effort to help each other out in the same way, you know, it is, you know, part laziness. Just no one's really done it in a good way.
Yeah, it's interesting because this one guy, there's a sports attorney, he talks about that all athletes should get together and, you know, work as a team, because it's not whether you're a baseball player, football player, swimmer. I mean, you all have similar paths that you've gone, and so why not work together? I mean, you know, given the example of, let's say, you know, you just retire and there's an NFL player or basketball or whatever, Olympian, that's a real estate agent, you want to move to California and they're there, then why not, you know, jump in and, you know, get help from them, work together, use that affinity relationship.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd love to, you know, help do that. That's part of my goals for the rest of my, you know, career.
That's awesome. So talk about, so now, you know, you've transitioned out, we're kind of go to current day, but maybe, you know, you're an entrepreneur now, you're a successful entrepreneur in the franchise world. What would you give some advice to, you know, current athletes, you know, college athletes or professional athletes, and, you know, give them some advice about what to look for after their playing days are over?
You know, something that it took me some time to realize, was that, you know, I did have experience, professional experience, you know, without working a traditional job. I had a lot of qualities that I learned, you know, through my decade plus in, you know, professional baseball that would translate directly to the business world. So have, you know, I would tell them, you know, feel more confident than I felt, because you've got things that you're going to find a lot of people lack, that you're used, that just are innate to you, and those things are going to make you succeed no matter what direction you go in. And it's not, you know, you're not behind the eight ball because you know, don't have experience, that you didn't get that job at 23 and now you're looking at it at 28. Like you know, you've gotten more value out of those 5 years than the other guy.
So tell us a little bit. You know, I always talk about that 30,000 foot view, and now drilling down to that corporate commercial. Talk a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yeah. So as I transitioned from baseball, you know, I didn't know what to do, and I started networking. relied on a few good friends. I had one really good friend that's really good at networking and just happened to have transitioned his career about 2 years before, from, in the medical world to the financial world. So he kind of laid out his playbook for me and helped me. And I just started following what he told me to do and started calling around. And eventually one of the people he connected me to was a franchise consultant that he had spoken with. And this guy, I knew on my first phone call with this guy that franchising was for me. It seemed like because at this point I started getting more confidence, figuring things out. And then franchising, instantly I realized, well, look, it's not just Arby's and McDonald's and Papa John's. There's a lot more to it. And the setup and the structure of it was perfect for me. It's like, you don't know anything about business. We've got a business. We've got a playbook. This is how you do it. You just have to, you buy in and then you run it. And you be resilient, work hard, put in the effort and lead and be, what I like to tell people now is it is not a common skill to be able to manage people, I guess, elegantly. Being in a locker room with 25 other guys every day, there's 25 other personalities and you learn them over time. And then, different things like, hey, I can joke around with this guy this way, or, simple things like that have directly translated into hiring people and building a team for my business, because that's all it is. I'm just a leader. I work hard, learned my industry that I had no experience in. So I guess back to that, he eventually, and that's, I'm getting ahead of myself, but so I ended up opening a franchise here in Nashville. It's an insulation franchise in the, home service and construction fields, that of which I had no experience whatsoever. That's kind of the beauty of franchising was, it's kind of like a widget. If you've got those core values and a little bit of capital to invest, then you can apply those directly to the business, no matter what it is. If it's, depending on the fit. And the other thing I knew in that first conversation with him was that I wanted to be a consultant. I was so thankful that I had met him, and then I was pissed off at the same time that why didn't baseball connect me to this guy or someone like that?
Yeah.
So I decided I wanted to do that and be that resource for other athletes that were going through what I was going through. And of course, I knew to do that, I needed to open my own business and be successful at it. And that's what I've done. I'm the leading franchise in a large and growing system. And I've found a way to build a team around me to free up my time so that I can, be doing things like this and consulting and helping other guys, which is, I guarantee you a lot more fun than hanging fiberglass in walls.
Yeah, for sure. Unless you go like undercover boss, right?
Yeah.
Go checking that stuff out. So how can people find you?
Yeah. So my email is bbeachy@franchoice.com. And you can go to franchoice.com. That's FRANCHOICE, Franchoice. And I'm technically an independent franchise broker consultant. But I work with a company called Franchoice that's, they only work with really the best franchises. And, my interest in this is not a selfish one. So going with them when they have a much higher standard was kind of a natural fit, because I want to connect people And the whole art of it is getting to know somebody and then pairing them up and their motives up and their desires and their dreams with franchises that can do that, you know, from the types of employees they want to the hours they work. All those things kind of factor in. But yeah, I got rambling there and forgot where I was going. Yeah, and you can find me
all the space, the Twitter, the Facebook, Instagram, we do all that.
I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on, you know, I was on Twitter, but I haven't been active in a long time. So, you know, find me on LinkedIn. You know, I'll be there.
And we'll put it in the show notes as well. And, you know, to find Alumni Direct, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook. Our website is alumnidirect.com. And we really want to make an impact on, again, just helping athletes and alumni in general, but helping in that transition for athletes and just teaching the right ways to network and connect. There's certainly an art to that. So, Brandon, it's been awesome. Really appreciate all the time and look forward to speaking again.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
You're welcome.